No, it was just to piggyback on this. Actually, before you asked that question, I was going to ask what their core values are. So, just very quickly what your core values are, and then you can piggyback with the question of what you bring to the table.
Is this for the whole panel, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just very briefly, what are your core values?
Core values.
Core values.
Chair one.
I would say, I think just love is like the most important.
Beautiful. So beautiful.
I mean, I think just being there for somebody is most important. I think intelligence, like she said, is also very important.
So, intelligence is a core value.
Andrew, just to help them out, what would be an example of a core value?
I actually don't want to help out on this. I
okay.
just want to know the answer to what
They
I mean,
think.
I don't think people are confused as to what a core value is, right? So, Chair 2, what are your core values?
I think I agree with Chair 1, like mainly love.
Okay, Chair 3.
Like the core values of what I look for in a person, like,
No, your core values.
myself. I would say that I think religion's pretty important. I think if you're kind of, I don't know, but I think not pressuring into anything is really important to me. Yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
Pause.
Okay, Chair 4, what are your core values?
I think I missed a little bit.
Oh, just
What are your core
what are your core
values?
values? That's the question.
I mean, I gift give a lot.
She's a gift giver. She
Uh-huh.
gives gifts.
Okay.
Gifts.
Chair 5, what are your core values?
Probably compassion, as well as I like to call myself a lifelong learner. So that just means every day making sure you go out there and you learn something new and you better yourself in some way.
Okay, Chair 6, core values.
Empathy. I really look for like kindness. I always and then like self-improvement.
Well, it's not what you're looking for. It's
Oh, sorry. My core values,
your
like
core values.
always,
yeah, your core
yeah,
values.
empathy, kindness, and then self-improvement, just being like a good-natured human being. That's
Okay.
what I hope for.
Core values.
They have to be on the same page.
No, your core values.
Oh, mine.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I guess
Your
like
core values.
like kind, yeah, empathetic, like I guess politically, like I care about women's rights, I care about reproductive rights, things like that.
Okay, next,
Okay.
core values.
I'd say always trying to be better, like never just giving up, and there's something that, you can always work on.
Okay. Core values.
Positivity, family, life, Christianity, and being self-aware.
I would like to point out before Brian asks his next question that none of you said duty. None of you said anything that was duty related. But anyway, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So you guys all listed kind of what you want men to bring to the table. You guys had various answers to that, different answers. What do you bring to the table? Go ahead.
I bring exactly what I expect them to bring. So, passion, commitment, just everything I would want, I would bring as well.
Do you want a guy to pay for the first date?
No,
No?
I don't think you
Don't
need
care?
to.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
All right. Sina, what about you?
I bring.
Wait, hold on. Just to be, in your questionnaire, you disagreed that women should go 50-50 on the first date.
Yeah.
So the man should pay on the first date.
No, I don't think they should go 50-50. I think it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter whether she pays the full bill or he pays the full bill. So kind of, I guess I could have put 50-50 on that one, but yeah.
So you're fine with it being 50-50 then?
Sure.
You just don't think it has
doesn't matter.
to be 50-50?
No.
Okay, all right. Sina, what do you bring to the table?
The fact that I'll be a housewife for them, because if it's a provider man, like, I don't think this might be controversial. Like, I don't think women, if you're not providing for your men, you can't bring much to the table. So, like, if I'm willing to be a housewife for them, or I'm willing to cook and clean for them while they work, I think that's enough.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to let it
Hail
chat
and
come
well
in
met.
here.
Lol Paladins donated $200.02. She has a boyfriend? Doesn't bother me, just send me a whisper. I'm playing on the Night Slayer server. He doesn't need to know if we clear Wailing Caverns together.
Wailing Cavern. By the way, guys, the Whatever Guild, Andrew needs to freaking create his mage. We are playing, there's the Whatever Guild. We're playing on Night Slayer for the anniversary World of Warcraft Classic Realms. We're on Horde side. Join the Discord, discord.gg/whatever if you want to join the guild. So,
Is that hardcore though, Brian?
no, not hardcore, just regular PvP.
Okay.
Yeah, not hardcore. Where were we? What do you bring to the table?
Loyalty for sure. I don't want to be in a marriage where I solely depend on my husband, because I feel like that gives him a lot of things like that he can hold over my head. So I definitely want to be able to be financially independent and take care of myself and my kids and give them the life I want for us, aside from my husband's salary.
Why do you assume that he would hold things above your head?
Just if I don't have anything and I solely rely on him for everything, I have to ask him, can I get this? Can I get that? I feel like also, like with prenups or anything like that, if I probably wouldn't divorce a man I didn't want to be with if I knew I would be homeless or I wouldn't be in that great of a state after.
So you wouldn't sign a prenuptial agreement?
I think I would, because I would have my own money. So it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
but I mean, do you plan on having children at some point?
Yes.
And it's probably going to be optimal for you to stay at home with them, right?
I don't think so.
You're going to outsource it?
What do you mean?
You're going to outsource your children's being raised by other people? Or would you rather raise them?
I'm definitely going to be a big influence in my children's life. It's also part of why I want to go to the PA program for the lifestyle balance. So I'm definitely I feel like I can also, with the help of my partner and I should both be able to raise our kids.
Yeah, but I mean, for just talking about what's optimal, let's say man has enough money so that you can stay at home with the kids. It would be optimal for you as the mother to stay home with the kids rather than outsourcing their raising to somebody who's not their mother, right?
I don't think I would need to rely on someone else that's not their mom. I think, like, of course you might need daycare and nannies.
Well, that's outsourcing, right?
Okay, but I would probably go with one of my family members, and
that's still outsourcing, right?
How many kids do you want?
Probably just like 2.
2 kids? Okay. All right.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Are you saying it's not possible to have a career in kids?
That's
No, of course not. It's possible. I'm talking about what's optimal. You think that it's a good idea to outsource the raising of your children to other people? It's not a good idea.
I'm sorry.
Why would it
I
be?
mean, men do it all the time, so I don't really see what your point is.
What do you mean?
I have
What do you
a
mean
comment.
men do it all the time?
Can men not have a career and raise kids?
No.
not
So that's
involved in it?
that's the optimal portion, right? Is that the man has a career, right? So last I checked, in case you don't know this, but men can't breastfeed, for instance. Women can do that. It's the healthiest way to raise a child is on breast milk, not with formula. We have all the scientific data on planet Earth at this point to prove that. So at least within the first year of the child's life, the mom probably should be at home with the child. If that is the case, then the father probably is going to be working, right?
Yes, but I mean,
Yeah,
we've been doing it
so-
for centuries. Can you not breast pump and give the milk out?
Yeah,
outside of
sometimes
that?
women have all sorts of different troubles with this. They can't produce enough milk, they can't pump enough milk. There's all sorts of things which come up when it comes to breastfeeding. So I mean, optimally, the best thing to do is to let the baby latch on and drink, right? That's how we've been doing this for several thousand years now. It works pretty good. And they get very healthy because they get the correct nutrition from their mom. And by the way, a baby's entire immune system is essentially formed off of those nutrients. So yeah, it's pretty good for the children.
If that's your view on it, then.
Well, I mean, what's controversial about that view? A baby's entire, they're literally, like, this will affect their IQ, it'll affect their development, it affects everything. It affects their immune system. If you give a child who's developing poor nourishment, you're setting them up for failure. You'll set them up to be lower IQ, have behavioral issues, have all sorts of problems. Of course, it's optimal for their mom to be there with them, giving them affection and feeding them, right?
Okay, but where's the dad at? If he's
The
always
dad is working to enable the fact that the mom can do that.
But it takes two to make a kid, right? So it should take two to raise that kid. And
is
if you
taking
need
two
to
to raise
reach
that
out
kid.
and if she wants to work because she doesn't want to depend on her husband, then her getting care for her child shouldn't be a problem at all.
Well, that's not what we're talking about, though. You're just switching the issue. We're talking about what's optimal, not what is possible. There's all sorts of arrangements which are possible. You could technically raise a kid in the Playboy Mansion, but do you think that that's going to be good for the kid?
No, of course not.
No, of course not. Right. So it's not optimal. So the thing is like, if we're talking about what's optimal, not
But
what's possible.
how are you
What's
to say
optimal,
what's best for a
obviously,
kid?
is if mommy
For their kid.
can stay at home with baby and feed baby breast milk and take care and nurture baby. Obviously, that's optimal. What can you give me a single scenario where there's
Yes,
something more optimal than that?
So no, I'm not saying more optimal, but what if that's not a possibility? So my son had a tongue tie, and that's a medical
Had a what?
problem. As a tongue tie, it's a medical problem as to why he couldn't
What's a
latch on.
tongue tie?
It is underneath your tongue. It's the thing that is like right there. It's too long, so you have to get it cut. You have to go through a procedure to be able to latch onto your mother.
Okay.
So there are reasons, and there's, it's not just, breast milk
Well,
is
I
best.
don't even
but-
understand in that context. Didn't she just get the procedure and then breastfeed the kid?
I mean, yeah, you could, but do you want to cut your child's
Well, then
tongue?
what's the problem? What do you mean?
Is cutting your child's tongue optimal?
But, well, let's assume for a second that in this one case where almost nobody has this problem,
Sorry,
we go,
multiple
okay,
people
we'll make,
have
Yeah,
this problem.
I had this problem.
Hang on. Let me make
yeah.
the case and I'll let you respond. I promise. Right? Let's say in this one case you had to make alternative arrangements, or you had to pump or something like this. It was less than optimal. Pointing at the outlier and saying that that's a standard we should promote seems silly to me. Yeah, I'm sure that there's going to be individual cases of health issues with children where you're going to have to make less than optimal decisions because you're in a less than optimal situation. But for the vast, vast, vast majority of all of humanity who exists right this second, clearly a woman staying at home with their children is optimal in comparison to outsourcing their children. That seems obvious, right?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
Because you can't just say that everything, that it's the world is ridiculous right now. Like, it's not like it was back in the day. It's not, that's not how things go anymore.
Because, Bill, yeah, it's not how it goes. If you say, well, I just demand that I go work and outsource my child care, then yeah. But the truth is that there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of families all over the world, all over the United States, all over South America, all over the place, who have dad go to work for very little money, and still, because they do all sorts of budget cuts in their homes, maybe they only have one vehicle, right? It's tough, but they make sure that mom can stay at home with kids because, well, they're going to get the best nutrition possible, and they're going to have their mom. What could possibly be more important to a baby than having their mom?
So let me ask, does that change how the child turns out?
Oh yeah, significantly changes.
So
the
then
results.
how
Hey,
does
hang on, I'll give you
dad?
some examples.
Then how does
I'll give you
dad?
hang on, I'll give you some
if it
examples.
changed,
so that you
then
know.
Can I add something?
So here's the examples. Yes. Not only does it affect their immune system, it affects their IQ, it affects their physiology, it affects their height, it affects their weight, it affects long-term problems inside of a human being's health. It also affects behavior. It affects behavior because you have detachment problems. You have all sorts of issues that come with the feeling of abandonment when childcare is outsourced away from the mom. And this is one of the most psychologically studied phenomenon on planet Earth, along with the nutritional values. And we see the results of mass inflammation in children, ADHD at all-time highs, depression, all of these different things. Much of this has been linked to the idea of the plastics that are inside of food, the lack of nourishment, lack of breastfeeding, and formula feeding.
So I would say I would agree. Maybe in the first year a child is born, that a mother could take time off to really, really tend to her child. But my mom has worked a full-time job since forever, and I mean, I feel like I turned out pretty good. I got my...
Yeah, but here's the thing. Nobody's disputing that you can't have good results by doing things in a less than optimal way. Nobody's disputing that. Like, for instance, I suppose that I could start a bonfire with a hand grenade, right? Or I can start it with a match. I would just say that starting it with the match would be more optimal than starting it with a hand grenade. The idea here, the idea here is just to say, right, that yes, you can have good results and good children and people who are even with that. But I'm just saying that if we look at the stats and the data, we can clearly see that most people have less than good results. And who knows how you would have turned out had mommy stayed home with you the entire time. Could be vastly different.
Can I say something? Did you do everything the optimal way? And did your parents do everything the optimal way if you're putting the standard on everyone else?
Let's say for a second they didn't. Do you understand that when you make an argument, a two-way quo fallacy, which is what you're doing right now, what about you? It wouldn't matter. Let's say for a second my parents did the opposite. They were both feminazis and they ran around with blue hair, right? They hated their children. They thought I was complete scum and they completely malnourished me. What in the world would that have to do with what was optimal or what wasn't?
I'm just saying that you're holding everyone to this ridiculous standard of every single thing having to be an optimal way.
All I said was what is optimal and what is not, looking for an argument for why I'm wrong. What standard have I held you to?
Do you guys agree that it's optimal?
Hang on, let her answer the question. What standard have I held you to?
If U.S. gave longer maternity leave and we were able to be with our children for that full 1 year, I guess I would say it's optimal, but many families cannot survive on one person's salary, especially with the economy. So right now, it's not.
Oh, yeah, well, then you need to explain why it is that it's the least rich demographic, the poorest people have the most amount of children.
What if
the poorest people who have the most amount of children also, right, have mom stay home while dad works, right? They're underneath that income threshold most of the time. And interestingly enough, what happens is the opposite. When you have middle class, they tend to do what's called family planning, right? And so they want to have kind of a posher lifestyle, and oftentimes they do that at the expense of the children.
I have a question.
The demographic has most kids is poor people, though, right?
How long do you think then a woman should optimally stay home with their child? What age is it okay for them to then resume their work?
I think that they should stay home with them until they're nearing adulthood.
But we send kids to school for the whole day when they're in kindergarten.
Do you guys want to work though?
I think they should be homeschooled.
Okay, that was
and I
going
think
to my
instead
question.
of using
Do you think they should
our
just
best,
stay at home the
I
whole
think
time?
that instead of using our best and brightest to go into office buildings all the time, right? And go work as sandwich makers and work in the service industry, which is where we send them all the time, right? Most of them aren't being doctors and lawyers. They're mostly working as waitresses and in the service industry. I think instead of wasting women there, we should take our best and brightest and have them raising the next generation of the best and brightest. That's what I think.
I say that because I actually was homeschooled my entire life, essentially. But there's definite bad things to homeschooling as well. You don't get the social connect you need between people of your own age, so that hinders you completely.
No, completely the opposite. In fact, the public school system, because of the way that it's set up, if you homeschool, all of the extracurricular activities which your property taxes go to pay for, you can enroll your children in all of them without ever sending them to that school. So if you want them to be on the wrestling team, the football team, the volleyball team, the cheerleading squad, or any of these different things, guess what? You can just send them right along because your tax dollars pay for all that. The school can't tell you anything different if you're inside the curriculum. So that's completely wrong. The socialization aspect of it has been well studied. They're not antisocial. They graduate much earlier than children outside the homeschool curriculum. They do better long-term in most longitudinal studies than people go to public school.
But I was homeschooled, yes, and that was not the case where I lived. Not to mention, I was not homeschooled by my parents. I was homeschooled by a computer, which is what a lot of homeschoolers are doing nowadays. They sit in front of their computers. Their family still goes off to work.
Yeah, what do you think you do in a public school?
Okay, but that raises the same point then. Do
Yeah,
you not
what's
feel
the
more
point, then?
neglect if you're being kept at home away from everyone else and your family is then also
You're not
having
being
to
kept
go
away
on
from
life?
anyone else. So this is full of red herrings and kind of false anecdotes.
It's
How are you
not.
being kept away from everybody else because you don't have to go to a pee-wee prison where you're locked in a room for 8 hours a day, right, and forced to learn shit you don't care about?
Let's
that seems
assume-
like it's completely suboptimal. In
Let's
fact,
assume the
you know
normal-
why that exists? That system exists because working parents need babysitters. That's why school lasts 8 hours, even though every single study we look at shows that young children do not do well when you go past somewhere around 3 to 4 hours of daily education. They don't do well. But we make the day that long so that parents can go and work and be cogs in the economy. Does that sound like it's a good deal? It doesn't sound like a good deal to me.
Speaking from my own personal upbringing and experience as someone who was homeschooled my entire life, when you're growing up and you see the quote unquote, let's say a normal childhood, you see kids going off to school, hanging out with their school friends, participating on these clubs that are in school, doing all this. When you don't get that as a child and you were not allowed to get that as a child in that normal experience, you feel a certain way about it. Almost anyone I know who is also homeschooled also has felt that certain way about it. And it takes a little bit to get over that because you're jealous for a while of people who got to do that.
What? I'm sorry. Didn't you say that you graduated at 14 and went to
Yes.
college? Yeah, I guarantee you that most of these public school kids who had to stay in the pee-wee prison until they were 18 and their senior year in high school, they were taking nothing but electives because they just needed to warm a seat so the school got federal funding, would vastly have preferred to have graduated at 14 years old and gone on with their life.
And every day I wish I had stayed behind and gotten to live a normal
What was the advantage of
experience.
staying behind? Why couldn't you live a normal life at 14 after you graduated?
Because being a 14-year-old in a class with a bunch of 20-something-year-olds, you're not going to make many friends.
You weren't going to, what classes were you going to with 20-something-year-olds at 14?
College classes?
You what? You weren't enrolled in college, going to college at 14. That's ridiculous.
What did I do in between the years I graduated at 14?
I have no idea, but you weren't going to
I
college
did.
and hanging out in rooms with 20-year-olds in college rooms
That's
learning.
what
That's
happens
ridiculous. Show
when
me a
someone
single picture
graduates
of this.
early.
So show me anything backing up that at 14 years old you were going to college rooms with 20-year-olds and learning advanced calculus. Ridiculous. The most ridiculous thing you've said all night.